So Split has just hit theatres, which means it's time to discuss, explain, and speculate on what it all means. Remember guys, this has a lot of spoilers and the film is best viewed not knowing them. I have only seen the film once, so don't be too harsh on me, and my explanations as to what have happened could be completely subjective to my views on the film. Also, with it just hitting theatres, I don't have a ton of visual material to work with without being slammed with copyright, so maybe just shut your eyes and let your ears do all the work. Now, this video will be in 3 sections. The first is an analysis on the film, the second is my theory to an alternate twist, and the third is the film's final twist explained. Alright, so let's begin. So, Kevin and Casey are both victims of child abuse. Kevin stems from his mother, who would harm him physically, while Casey's is of sexual abuse from her uncle. It's revealed that Kevin has 23 personalities. While we really only see a handful of them, it's obvious that each is its own creation to deal with the childhood trauma, a new personality for a new type of abuse. The personality of Dennis is a clean freak, borderline OCD, and this is due to his mother being less abusive if everything was neat and tidy as a child. But now that Kevin has grown up, the world does not believe in his type of disorder, and has never had proper treatment until Dr. Fletcher starts giving him therapy. It's the belief of a few of the interior personalities that with the creation of a 24th identity known as the Beast, the world will truly understand that this is an actual disorder and not just a lie. It's positioned as a Christ parable, the Beast being able to set all of the other identities free in a certain way, though many of the other identities do not agree with the ones in charge. As part of the ritual, the Beast must feast on impure young girls to maintain his existence, and he will be manifested at a train station where Kevin's father left him, and this is maybe the original reason as to why his mother has been so harsh on him in the first place. It's revealed earlier in the film that there was supposed to be 2 sacrifices, the 2 girls that they had been watching, while it's also said that by Dr. Fletcher that Kevin had a recent breakdown after 2 girls took advantage of one of the identities at his workplace earlier in the year, and that maybe he never fully recovered. It stands to question if they are maybe the same 2 girls that he has kidnapped, though they never come out and say it. The girls maybe were too self-indulged in their own doings to take note of the face that they were harassing, just like at the beginning of the film, that it takes them much longer than it should have to realize that Claire's father isn't about to drive the car. Now let's quickly rewind to Casey. There is a definite animal motif that runs through the film, with both hunting and the 24th identity being a beast. It's also seen in the sexual game that Casey is taken advantage of by her own uncle in the film. The reveal brings perspective on all of Casey's actions in the film. She knows to pee on herself to perhaps prolong being raped, and she gives us advice to Marcia. She knows when to take orders and how to treat the captor in the right way. She also knows how to take advantage of Hedwig, the 9-year-old identity. She uses the same tricks and persuasion as her uncle did to her. The physical abuse, as well as the sexual abuse that Casey has encountered in her life, has left her with scars, and the film comes down to this specific point. In the end, Casey has a gun to the Beast, much like when she had a gun to her own uncle, though this time she pulls the trigger. Seeing herself that Kevin's aggression, resent, and ability to not be able to stand up for himself has caused him to turn into an animal also gives perspective to Casey to show the Beast her scars instead of hide them, unlike Barry, who hides them with his other identities. It's the Beast's belief that if you have been through these types of struggles, you are pure, and thus he leads Casey. Now being able to confront her own repression, she informs the officer at the end of the film what she has been through when her uncle has arrived to pick her up. No, she doesn't actually say it, but it is very obvious that this is about to happen. This also gives closure to the fact that earlier in the film they say that Casey runs away a lot, gets into trouble intentionally so that she doesn't have to go home. This will no longer happen to her. Just like Kevin's identities are freed at the end of the film due to the Beast, so is Casey's true identity. At the end of the film, it's my belief that when Casey is found and taken to someone to call for help, it is the man that she is taken to that talked to her on the other end of the walkie-talkie earlier in the film. His expression on his face says it all. Here, they also say that the Beast was brought on by Kevin's working at a zoo. It's actually an amalgamation of all the animals that he had worked with. Anyway, that's all I got off of the first viewing. Some of this might be wrong, and I bet there is even more to deconstruct. But onto my second part, which is my theory of an additional twist popped into my head earlier in the film. And that's that Casey has split personality too, and her uncle is really Kevin. It's clear that Dennis, the cleaning identity and leader, does have a tendency towards young girls like Casey's uncle. He's told by other personalities that he is not allowed to touch them. Dennis is also the only identity that never truly makes proper eye contact with Casey during the film, perhaps ashamed of what he did to her specifically. The reason that the face is different in the flashbacks is because Casey's other personalities' view on what the personality of Dennis looked like. Perhaps this is something that the two do regularly in an attempt to free the beast. It's stated that they do move around a lot. Casey is purposely left behind at the cafe at the beginning of the film. She also hesitates to leave the car. The identity of Dennis also gives her time to leave. It also explains that Casey knows how to play all the identities to her own strengths, knowing not to step too far in particular scenes. It's also when other identity in Casey pops up that she realizes she needs to get out of there, one identity being a submissive, the other being dominant. At the end, the Beast identity causes Casey's identity to crumble into one, and at the end of the film when the police officer says her uncle is coming is really an imaginary line, simply her thought process of how she is going to explain to the officer that her uncle molested her. Now for part 3, the final twist, which is Bruce Willis turns up to recruit Split for the Avengers, and unfortunately, while that does not actually happen, he might as well have, as it turns out that Split takes place in the same universe as Unbreakable just 15 years later. When a woman explains that there was a similar case involving a man in a wheelchair just some time ago, Bruce Willis's character from Unbreakable, David Dunn, interjects, "His name is Mr. Glass." It's hard to decipher if there are any other clues to this twist throughout the film. Though I'm sure that there are, I doubt that anyone was looking for them on the first viewing, if they didn't already know the ending. Though there is a conversation earlier in the film by Dr. Fletcher that explains that maybe dissociative identity disorder is the stem of our society's view on all things supernatural. Perhaps this means that Glass is weak because his particular identity is weak, or maybe David Dunn is strong because his identity is strong, or perhaps Glass, Dunn, and Kevin are all forms of the Beast. Anyway guys, that's what I got off the first viewing. Of course, add what I got wrong or what I missed, which I'm sure is a great deal of things. And if you want to listen to more, click around. I'll leave it all here for you. You just do you, and I'll do me.